Let's get to work.
All right, everybody, here we go. It is time for the Sandbox Podcast, a platform where we learn to lead well with other leaders. Oh, I'm excited. Let's just do it. Let's just do it. Coming to you live from the good land, it's your boy Tyler Richardson, and we are pumped that you are with us for today's episode of the Sandbox Podcast. What we're going to be doing today is it's our first part one of a two-part series. We're really stoked about that. Don't know if it'll ever happen again, but we're pretty confident in the fact that we're going to do a second part, which is why we're going to speak in faith that this part one is actually a part one and not a part one that never has a part two brother that, never picks them up from school. So what we're going to be talking about today is mind control, part one. Mind control, part one. Okay, and I wanted to start with the part one. When you listen to part two, it'll make more sense. I kind of wanted to come at this more of a place where we really observe ourselves and not where we're like, amen, you're right, yeah, that's right, that leader sucks. No, I want us to think about ourselves, because when we get in a subject matter of like the mind around leading around other leaders and how much the mind plays a role in it, it's very easy that our energetic, you know what I'm saying. I'm not sure if I'm saying it right, but I think all of y'all are smart enough to fill in the blanks of what it's supposed to sound like. Energetic, fill in the blank, you know what it's supposed to sound like. Reaction is we always assume that the problem is always with other people. So I want to address that today with your mind. I heard a statement many years ago that said, where the mind goes, everything goes. We've talked previously about how weight has to have infrastructure, and you're building an infrastructure in yourself, and you have to make sure that it can hold the weight that is put on it. You want to, before you get the weight of responsibility, you need to make sure that in yourself you've built an infrastructure that can handle it, and that you don't crush under that responsibility or get crushed under that moment of opportunity, that you can withstand the weight that comes upon you, whether that be in a raise or maybe a solo on your worship team or whatever. Just making sure that you can withstand that weight. And a lot of times what happens is the weakest place in our bodily infrastructure is our mind. We usually, what happens is there's a beginning, a middle, and an end. And there's what starts a thought process, and then there's the end of what we really think at the end of that thought process. But in the middle, we usually let our mind fill in the blank and do all the conversations. Now, what may start that is maybe somebody gives you a dirty look, or somebody is, you're in a frustrating moment and it's high pressure and you got to make a decision really quick, and they're like, oh, shut up, Tammy, we're just going to do this. And you're like, oh, and that starts a conversation. And way at the end of that, when Tammy was told to shut up, at the end of it, she decides that Tammy now hates Veronica for telling Tammy to shut up. But in the middle ground, how we arrived at hating Veronica was we let a whole lot of mind conversation happen. And that's what I want to talk about today. And I think a lot of times what happens is in that middle ground mind conversation where you're the narrator, you're all of the characters, you're everybody, and you have it all together. What we focus on so strongly in those mental battle conversations where everyone else is the villain and we're the white horse knight analogy that I'm butchering right now, but I know that you understand what I'm talking about. Basically, what we have to come to grips is we have to take ownership of that middle mind conversation that we are having. A lot of times what happens is you can be the winner of an argument in your own mind that no one sees, and you feel really, really confident in that. You're like, oh man, in my mind, I told you off. Oh, you don't even know what I said about you in my mind before I walked in. You would blush. You take so much confidence in the arguments that nobody sees that you win, that you don't realize that what really needs to happen is that there's a team that you lead around, that team needs to visibly succeed. And as long as you're winning battles in your mind that nobody sees, you're never going to be able to be succeeding in public for everyone to see with your team, because you're kind of removing yourself from what really needs to happen because you're so concerned about succeeding in it in some inward conversation that probably didn't exist in the first place. More than likely they didn't mean it the way that you took it, or maybe they did mean it the way you took it, but not as harsh. And there's all these things that come into play. And when you let yourself and your mind finish those conversations instead of having those conversations on the outside, that's where a lot of the problem comes in. And I think a lot of that is because we just hate honesty. We just can't really handle the awkwardness. We can't just say, Corey and Topanga made out. We can't just say that. We can't just say Shannon had an attitude. We can't just say, oh, Charlie keeps, being late and you told us we're going to get in trouble we're late, but Charlie's never in trouble when he's late. What's up with that? We can never just have that conversation. So what happens is Charlie walks in late and in our minds we go, Charlie's late again. They never care if Charlie's late, but they always care if I'm late. I remember 2 weeks ago I was late and they made a big deal about it and they embarrassed me and they've never said they were sorry, but Charlie's always late. But what's happening is that's a conversation you are allowed to just keep building an infrastructure in your mind. And then what happens is when people are trying to either rectify things that they did wrong, or then you've got to be put in a team with Charlie or Veronica or Tammy or all these other random people I'm making up, in those moments, what is keeping you from being able to succeed as a team of leaders around other leaders is the fact that you've already built an infrastructure in your own mind, in your own subconscious, that keeps you from being able to succeed publicly in front of other people because you were so concerned about succeeding in your own imagination. Now, and a lot of times why that matters is because we usually take on the attitude of we just need to move on. All right, so-and-so, y'all had an issue with each other. We just need to move on. We need to let this go. We need to move on, blah, blah, blah. But what happens is there's such a difference in moving on and moving forward. I can move on with you and still hate your guts and we're moving on, but we're not moving forward. I can, if I'm in charge of the choir, I can give you a solo. And then the second you're done with the solo, everybody saw us smiling and everybody clapped, or I'm helping you, with a presentation that's got to be given to a higher ranking official, or I'm helping you on with some type of plan that needs to be, manifested for leadership or whatever. In the situation, all these people are looking at us and it looks like we're just moving on. But what is actually happening is that we're moving on, but we're not moving forward. Because if we were moving forward, I wouldn't just give you a solo and I wouldn't just help you with the project and I wouldn't just get through a presentation. We would move forward where everybody would go, okay, yeah, that's good. That's great. All right. Anybody else have anything to say? Instead of that, we would move towards, oh, wow, I never thought about it like that. Oh, wow, what a great idea. Oh, you sang so beautifully. I never saw such unity on a stage. All those things, such a difference from moving on and moving forward. Now, I went through a phase, I don't know where it came from, but I got through a phase of being really into mind stuff, memory stuff, what makes people be able to read fast in their mind, what allows people to be able to, memorize, whole chapters of books and blah, 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 blah. Just the science of it. And so one thing I learned in all of that was a test of how people, whether it be in like high-ranking officials in government, all this kind of stuff, specific memory tests. And today we're going to do a group activity with this memory test. And I'm going somewhere with it, so even though right now it's not really going to make a whole lot of sense, I promise you it is by the time we're done, I'm hoping. So what we're going to do, we're going to come up with a whole bunch of random objects, and I'm going to teach you how to, memorize them. Whether it could be something for grocery lists or a to-do list, even though nowadays we just, look on our phone constantly. But still, for some reason, let's just pretend your phone died for 30 minutes and you had to remember your milk. Now you would be able to. So these are the objects, and I'm going to teach you how to remember obscure lists like this. Okay, the first thing, cookies. The second thing, elephant. Third thing, polka dots. Fourth thing, the number 3. Fifth thing, airplane. Sixth thing, chicken noodle soup. All right, so that's 6 things, okay? Cookies, elephant, polka dots, the number 3, airplane, and chicken noodle soup. Okay, now obviously those things have nothing to do with each other. And obviously if I just gave you that list and in an hour, 2 hours, it wouldn't even take a whole lot of time, you would not be able to repeat that list back to me because it's very obscure, it doesn't really make a lot of sense. I'm going to show you how to memorize things like this. And I'm going to show you how powerful our brains actually are and how we can actually control a lot more of what goes on in them. Okay, so the trick to learning how to do all of this with these objects is you can't just remember the objects. So cookies, you can't just think of a cookie, you know, just as it is. You have to think of something drastic. And as drastic as you naturally go, you need to up the drasticity just a pinch, okay? So you can't just think of, oh, well, instead of a real cookie, I'll think of a cartoon cookie. No, you need to think of a cartoon cookie that is, for some reason, you know, the size of the Empire State Building and that is wearing sunglasses. Whatever it would do that would be drastic and make no sense. Maybe it's got a big smile on its face. Maybe it's singing a song, whatever. You have to do a drastic image of that cookie. So do that right now. Drastic image. It's big, it's huge, it's got arms, it's got legs, and put yourself beside of it so you see how really tall the cookie is. Okay, now you see that? Okay, now the cookie is holding something. In its giant Mickey Mouse glove hands, it is holding something. What is it holding? It is holding a toy elephant. A toy elephant. This elephant is crazy. I can't believe it. This giant, as big as the Empire State Building cookie, is holding in its Mickey Mouse giant glove hands this elephant. It's just holding this elephant. And look at this. This elephant, oh my gosh, what is on this elephant? Polka dots. It's got polka dots all over it. You can barely see the elephant through the polka dots. Oh my word. Oh, what is this? What is inside these polka dots? What? There's something inside the polka dots on the elephant. What is this? Oh my word. In all of these polka dots is the number 3. Okay, now again, you got to make the 3 really dramatic. So the 3, I'm going to say the 3 is made of Jell-O. Okay, so this giant cookie as big as the Empire State Building. And inside its gloves, hands, it's just this giant monstrosity hands. There's this toy elephant. In the toy elephant are all these little polka dots. So many polka dots you can barely see the elephant. Oh my word, if you look closely, what is in these giant Jell-O 3s inside of the polka dots on the toy elephant in the hands of this giant cookie? This is insane. Oh my word, what is this? Those aren't just Jell-O 3s. Those are Jell-O 3s with wings. Oh my gosh, that 3 is actually an airplane. It is an airplane. This is insane. An airplane. What in the world is up with this? This is insane. This airplane is now flying around inside the polka dots. This is crazy. Oh my word, wait a minute. This polka dot is not just a polka dot. This polka dot is a bowl that is full of chicken noodle soup. It is full of chicken noodle soup. This is insane. Oh my word. So really quick, let me see if y'all can remember just the objects that are in there. What was the first object? Cookie. Very nice, very nice, very nice. Now, what was the second object? The elephant. Yes, yes, yes. And then what else was it? Polka dots. Yes. Yes, the 3, the Jell-O 3. Very good. And then, Oh, yes, the 3 is actually an airplane. It's flying around. What's it flying around? Oh, the polka dot. Chicken noodle soup. There you go. Cookies, elephant, polka dots, 3, airplane, chicken noodle soup. Now here's a test, and y'all can actually prove that this actually works. In 2 hours, or maybe this time tomorrow, or whatever, try again to remember this analogy and see if you cannot remember these 6 objects. And see if this test does not actually work. Now the reason I gave you this example is because of this. And immediately when you could be in a meeting, you can be in a high pressure, decision-making scenario, you can be on stage with a worship team, you can be behind the scenes with, the production people, whatever. In some moment, somebody, for some reason or another, maybe they had a bad day, maybe you came in a little abrupt than, more than they're used to, something, for some reason, attitudes were flaring up. In that moment, something's going to get said, there's going to be some type of weird eye glare that happens. In those moments, your brain is automatically going to latch on to those words, to those looks, to those whatever, and it's going to begin the conversation that's going to build an infrastructure in your imagination. So what I want you to do, and this is obviously, it's very difficult. If it wasn't difficult, we would already be doing it. But you got to start somewhere. So what it is, I want you to imagine the most giant net. It's a gold net. It glows in the dark. I usually make all my examples cartoons. Maybe that helps you. I don't know. But I'm imagining this giant golden, it's glowy. It's got those little, glow flares around it. And it's just this giant net. And what happens is the second I get that nasty look from Bartholomew over there, it gets caught in this magic net. And I immediately go, you know what? I'm not going there. I'm not doing this. I'm not allowing this conversation to go out of control the way it could right now in my imagination. I'm going to stop this. I'm just going to give them grace. Maybe they're having a bad day. Maybe I'm just being touchy and frustrated for some abnormal reason today. Whatever it is, I'm not going to allow this passing moment to be a continuous conversation in my imagination. Now, the way usually you can prevent conversations in the imagination going too far is you can either go to that person, just have the open, honest, awkward conversation, or you can go to maybe a leader that's a little higher up in you. Maybe they can sit in a meeting and they can, kind of go back and forth and be the counsel in between the two, fighting parties, whatever. And then if there's ever a moment in a meeting to be honest, try and be honest. I know most of the time we're never going to be honest because even though they say there's no consequences, there's always consequences. They're always going to treat you different. They're always going to, maybe they usually call you to do something and now they're not going to call you as less. People are naturally just inclined to treat you different when they find out that you haven't been leading them correctly. So don't let that discourage you. The leader, the people you're leading, the people you're being led by, we all have to learn to watch the infrastructures that our minds are building. Does that make sense? This was a lot in this podcast. I mean, a heck of a lot. And I feel like I was talking very fast. You ever hold your breath when you talk? I think I hold my breath when I talk when I'm nervous, which is why I'm feeling it right now. So, this is part 1 of the Mind Control Sandbox podcast episode. I hope it helps. I hope it makes sense. Learn to have that golden cartoon net catch every attitude that is thrown your way. Be able to live free from your imaginations. Live free of the own infrastructure that you're building so that way that the infrastructures can be built correctly so you can hold proper weight instead of holding baggage. There is a drastic difference than carrying weight and holding baggage. We have to move forward, not move on. Move forward, not move on, and we will all be better for it. We will see you next time, and remember to play nice in the sandbox.